We will move by his compassion towards the Holy Dharma to rid us of all distorted views. So, in the last 3 days, we had the recitation of the Heart Sutra in Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese. So for thousands of years, this has been done in these languages, but in English, the recitation of the Heart Sutra started around the towards the end of the 20th century. It started in it. And people, because of interest from Westerners in Buddhism. So we'll continue with the teaching from where we left yesterday. So I've basically explained the meaning. So perhaps in the 400 verses of Aryadeva, it says first get rid of non-meritorious actions, in the middle get rid of grasping itself, and then finally get rid of all distorted views. So the first thing we need to do is to avoid killing and so forth, the 10 non-virtuous actions which would lead to lower realms of existence. So in other words, actions which ensue from the 3 poisons of attachment, hatred, and ignorance. So the purpose of avoiding these non-meritorious actions is to be reborn or to be born in a higher realm of existence. So, but that is not the end. Although we have attained human rebirth, we can experience all the different kinds of suffering, such as suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. And on top of that, we have many different problems and difficulties which are caused by human beings. And there are lots of problems and sufferings which are caused by humans themselves. So that is because of our self-centered attitude. As long as your mind is not disciplined, however good custom or facilities you may have, it's going to be very difficult to have a good life. Whether you are a believer or not, whether you are a Buddhist or not, as long as you're a human, you should be a good human being. So what that means is not just talking nicely, but in action, being good. The best is to be able to serve others, help others. Even if you are not able to help others, at least do not harm them. So in the world, people who are known as heroes, there is none of them who have died happily after having killed all their enemies. So after killing hundreds of thousands of people whom you consider as your enemies, You may know this. On September 11th, 2001, there was destruction of the two World Trade Center buildings, and also in Pentagon there was destruction. So at that time, so this president was Mr. George Bush Jr. So I know him very well. So as a human being, on that human level, he's a very good person. It's very straightforward, very easy to get along with. So I'm close to him. So on the 11th of September, this event happened, and then I wrote him on the next day. I'm very sad that this has happened in America, and I pray for the people, the victims. But you should follow a peaceful means to respond to that action. But however, though his intention was to spread democracy and freedom in Iraq, despite that, the action that he took was violence, and therefore there has been continuous problems even until today. And then there is the Israel-Palestine conflict. So it's very sad that in Arab region there is no peace. And therefore now we have a huge exodus of refugees. So these are all man-made problems. So non-violence is indispensable in our world today. Non-violence should not be practiced out of fear, because you are not able to harm others. But even if you may have all the forces and the potential to harm others, but if you actually go for violence, there's not going to be any end to it. You may kill one person, but then there may be more people behind that person, his relatives and so forth, his or her relatives and so forth. And so you are going to have continuous problems due to these other family members who are still alive. So if you make one person your enemy, and you kill that person, you'll have 10 more enemies. So this is how what violence actually does. So if you have fear, anxiety, and distrust, that is important. It's important we need to deal with these. But with human beings, you should actually make them friends and try to negotiate so that there is mutual benefit, and resolve the problem through mutually acceptable means and agreements. In the past, people lived in small communities. In such circumstances, maybe one community, when they are able to crush another community whom they consider as enemy, maybe they have victory, but not today. So the best thing we can do is to help others, serve others. So in order to be able to do that, you need to gain their trust. And therefore, you should get rid of your attachment, desire, and also wrong living. In other words, the 10 non-virtuous actions, as well as the 6 other practices that are given in the Ratnavali. So you should refrain from these non-virtuous actions. And then also to serve, however little you may be doing, to serve your community. And so that's the meaning of avoiding non-meritorious actions. And then in the middle, get rid of grasping at self. So it's not enough just to overcome the painful, obvious experience of suffering, but we also need to overcome the changeable suffering. And that is in turn rooted in the conditioned,
to the precious Buddha,
conditioned
the
existential
teacher,
suffering.
to the
So
precious
let's say
Dharma,
the blessing for the tea and
protector,
bread.
to the precious Sangha, the unassailed guide. We offer this to the
Someone
three
yam
jewels,
dolong.
our source of refuge.
So the suffering of suffering, and then the changeable suffering or suffering of change have their basis in. So first of all, with regard to these 2 sufferings, it is the pain, the obvious painful experience that we have. And so the pain comes when you have some sickness in the body, some disease in the body, and that the disease, the basis of that pain is the conditioned existential suffering. So all of us have that same problem. As long as you are under the influence and sway of the negative emotions, you will have this experience of suffering. So whether you have done a virtuous action or non-virtuous ones, you will have this kind of existential suffering. So as long as you have the psychophysical aggregates, which are the results of your negative emotions and karma, that form of life or experience is called existential suffering. So however much you may train your mind in the different sciences, for example, the 5 conventional sciences and so forth, as well as the meditations, to overcome these first two types of suffering, so long as there is the 3rd type of suffering, you are still in samsara. And therefore, in order to get rid of it, you need to understand selflessness, to get rid of the self-grasping. And then the residual stains or the latent potencies left by these negative grasping at self has to be overcome. As long as you are still with this dualistic appearance, illusory perceptions, you will not be able to serve sentient beings limitlessly, effortlessly. And therefore, you need to overcome all defilements, including these stains left by the negative emotions. And for that, you need to complement the understanding of selflessness or emptiness with the help complemented by or with the bodhicitta and the 6 perfections. So when you meditate on emptiness with the purpose of overcoming even the residual stains of these negative emotions and destructive emotions, then you are doing the meditation on emptiness to serve the complete purpose, and therefore to have the ability to overcome even these stains called the cognitive obscurations. You need to develop this wisdom realizing selflessness, helped by the bodhicitta and so forth. And so you will be able to see the benefit of also the bodhicitta. It has the benefit of serving you, helping you not only ultimately but even temporarily in samsara. And Bodhisattva Charya Avatara by Shantideva says that if you are not able to exchange your happiness and joy with the suffering of others, then live alone with the hurt. Even in samsara, you will not have happiness, and therefore you have to think about the greater purpose and not indulge in the smaller, trivial ones. So the more your concern for others grow, for others' happiness grows. The more you take care of others, you will be able to draw greater benefit for yourself and others as well. And therefore, bodhicitta is really something precious. And with regard to bodhicitta, Sutra Alamkara says its root is compassion. So in order to develop true, genuine compassion within yourself, you also need to develop the determination to be free from samsara yourself as well, which is usually called renunciation. And so, having developed the renunciation, then compassion, then you develop bodhicitta on the basis of this. Just as you go, it's like going through a school system. You start from the kindergarten level and then go up. And then you go into the middle school, junior school, middle school, high school, and then university level. And so you have to actually train yourself in order to make progress along the path, so that such that your goal is the highest goal of enlightenment. And therefore, in order to do the practice, how to go about with the practice, we'll go through the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas as well. So the understanding of emptiness, to be effective, you need to have it complemented by or supported by single-pointed concentration. Of course, we may be able to stay in meditation, single-pointed meditation, for a few seconds, very few moments. But because you have not, you do not have the experience of the stability, maintaining the stability, you will not be able to sustain that focus. Because when you do vipassana, this penetrative insight, it is a meditation where you do critical analysis into the nature of things that you are meditating on. And then having done that, when you are able to find your object that you want to meditate on, then you focus, you do focusing meditation, and then again from there come out and do penetrative insight meditation, the analytical meditation, and then go again into focusing meditation. So our goal needs, we must try to develop this kind of penetrative insight, this analytical meditation, further and further, so that you we are able to reach a state where we realize emptiness directly. And therefore, in the text, the stages of meditation, first, the meditation or the development of the shamatha, single-pointed meditation, is given. And then it goes into the development of special insight. And so the text goes through meditation on selflessness. So as it is taught in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, that everything is merely designated, mere name, but nothing whatsoever has any intrinsic or absolute existence, not the slightest. And with regard to this view of the Madhyamakas, or the middle way view, the highest philosophical school that we should follow is the Master Nagarjuna's philosophical school of Madhyamaka. So there is otherwise the Chittamatra view, which talks about the non-duality of subject and object, so which is based on teachings like Sandinimochana Sutra, which actually says that in the Perfection of Wisdoms, the Buddha says, I have taught that things have no objective or existence. But I have said that by having such and such in mind. So it's made an interpretable teaching. So in praise to the Buddha, by John Lama Rinpoche, so what this teaches is that because things are dependent origination, therefore they have no objective existence, often in themselves. But still, because they are dependent, things have their functions. So, dependence means that it's not independent. Things are not independent. And therefore, there's nothing. So, dependence shows that there is no independent existence, and origination means that things are merely designated, accepted as being designated. So the reality of dependent origination has the power to eliminate, do away with both the extremes of nihilism and eternalism. And so this reasoning to prove emptiness is really a profound reasoning. And so having developed single-pointed concentration, then you focus your mind on emptiness or selflessness, and then on the basis of, by doing this kind of analytical meditation, you develop special insight into emptiness. So with regards to the length of the session that you sit in your meditation, if you sit too long, you will feel fatigue, and therefore your meditation will not be effective. And so in the beginning, your sessions should be short, but you should do it repeatedly. So in the morning, before the sunrise, get up and do some meditation. And then after sunrise, you should make another session, have another session of meditation. And then in the afternoon, one session. And then after the sunset, after dusk, you should sit for the 4th session. The important thing is not how much time you spend, but to have clarity of mind. So therefore, morning time before sunrise is really good. And then, even if you may be doing some prayer, I mean, you should think about the meaning of those lines that you recite. Khedrubje says that when you do some deity yoga practice, you may be going through some sadhana. It's better to not recite verbally, but actually focus your mind on the content of that sadhana. So it's a difficult thing to do, but if you have to say the sadhana, then sometimes what happens is you keep repeating the sadhana. You may be able to read through or recite up to some point, but then you'll go back to the beginning without being able to finish. And so, if you could think through the meaning of what prayer you are saying, then it would be the prayer, doing your prayer would be also very beneficial and effective. So in meditation, you have a meditation session and then a post-meditation session as well, in between sessions, during the post-meditation session, you should not forget what you have been meditating on, but reflect. Remind yourself of what you have done during the meditation session itself. And especially with regard to meditation on emptiness and such. I mean, while you are in the session, you may do some meditation, but during the post-meditation session, what should happen is that such a meditation should make you see things like illusion. Wherever you look, right, left, east, west, as long as people are under the sway of negative emotions, they are going to cause themselves problems. So that kind of confirmation should come. And then, if you could reflect on and remind yourself of the middle way view called the Prasangika school, which rejects any objective existence whatsoever, then things will look like during this meditation session itself, you may have some confirmation or conviction that things do not have any intrinsic or any objective independent existence, but they are like illusion. And so during the meditation session, you should focus your mind on the lack or absence of any independent existence of things in meditation, and then in the post-meditation session to be able to have a vision that sees that things are like illusion. So if you are able to do your sessions and post-sessions well, then even during dreams. Of course, in deep sleep, you will not have dreams, but when your sleep becomes slightly thinner, then you will be able to have dreams. And even in dreams, you may be able to do meditations on bodhicitta and emptiness and so forth. Sometimes it's quite strange that the ability to do analysis into the nature of things, like is stronger in dream states than during a waking state. So this happens to us. This is because once you go into sleep, when you are dreaming, the sensory perceptions are no more working. They have subsided, and therefore the mind has gone subtler, into a subtler level. And therefore, with the help of this subtler mind, if you are able to think or reflect on these points, it's more powerful. And therefore, according to Tantra, there's the usage of what is known as clear light mind. So that still may be more powerful to use in your meditation. And so you divide your time into meditation session and post-meditation sessions. So the text goes through making prostration to the Buddhas and so forth. And so the text mentions that you should cultivate compassion together with the understanding of emptiness. And in that sense, the meditation on emptiness becomes a meditation that fulfills the complete purpose of your meditation practice. And so what this shows is that we should combine both the merit and wisdom. So in the tantric practices, when it is even said that while you are in single-pointed meditation, you also are able to accumulate merit that is needed to become enlightened. So then slowly arise from the cross-legged position and make prostrations to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. On page 43, second paragraph. The 10 directions, make them offerings and sing their praises and make vast prayers by reciting the prayer of noble conduct and so forth. Thereafter, engage in conscious efforts to actualize the accumulations of merit and insight by practicing generosity and so forth, which are endowed with the essence of emptiness and compassion. If you act thus, your meditative stabilization will actualize that emptiness that possesses the best of all qualities. So these lines show that how important wisdom is, and that how important combining wisdom with the merit is as well. So having trained yourself in these, how what do you make change within yourself? So it comes later. So what this shows that is that you develop a calm mind, and then that in turn helps in the accumulation of merit. And therefore, as Bodhisattva Charyavatara says, which intelligent person would despair riding the horse of bodhicitta, which leads one to from bliss to bliss. And so cultivating bodhicitta is a powerful means. And then if you could combine bodhicitta with the understanding of emptiness, it would be really good. On top of that, then if you could add tantric practice, that would be really effective. Otherwise, without the basic experiences of bodhicitta and the understanding of emptiness, the tantric practice may not be so effective. So long as we are under the influence of our negative karmas and negative emotions, we will die in the end. Therefore, while alive, if you could dedicate your life for the benefit of others, it would be good. As long as, just as it is prayed, as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain and abide to dispel the miseries of the world. May I be the sustenance for countless beings, like the earth and so forth. And in the Kadam tradition, the masters have so the best of the practitioners actually are happy to die when death comes, but the middling, the intermediate ones will not despair, will not, and then the least practitioners will not have any regret at the time of death. And so, while alive, you should meditate on, cultivate bodhicitta, this altruistic intention, and even at the time of death. And then, with the help of this, you will go from a blissful state to blissful state. And then, of course, at the time after one has died, you could do what is known as poa meditation, the projection of the mind out of the body, which seems to be a common also to, a shared practice with the non-Buddhist Hindu traditions. So I met once one Hindu practitioner in Gorakhpur who told me such thing. And so, then you will take rebirth, which comes after the parto, the intermediate state between death in this life and the birth in the next. But near the time of death, if your mind is full of negative emotions, attachment, anger, and so forth, or anxiety, fear, and so forth, it will not be good. Even if you may have not done much religious practice or cultivated good states of mind, but around the time of death, if you could, to the best of your ability, try to think positive, have positive thoughts, it would be really helpful. So the mind at the time of death is really, when you are in the dying process, is really crucial. So we should not disturb the person, the dying person, but try to calm their mind, and also, if possible, then give them talk about bodhicitta or faith, devotion, until up to the point when they are still able to listen to you and think. and which means until the point when the mind dissolves. And then the gross states of mind would dissolve into the subtler ones. And so there's the dissolution of the 5 elements: earth into water, water into fire, and that into the wind. And then at that point, when the wind dissolves into the consciousness element, then the person stops breathing. And then that the consciousness in turn dissolves into the space, within which there are 4 states: the first space, second and third, which are the termed as whitish appearance, reddish increase, blackish near attainment, and then the all empty state, which is the innate clear light minds. So while the gross states of minds are still active, the people can still think and have memories. But after that, then the memory of this life will fade. And so even after that, just as it is said that sleep and our conceptions are these mental states called regret, sleep, conception, analysis are variable mental factors. Therefore, due to conditions, we can actually turn them into positive states or negative states. And therefore, even after losing the memory, you can still make that kind of change. So in other words, the person dying, as long as the person still has memory and is alive, you should take care of the person, not so that the person is not full of regret and the worries. Even if the person may not have any religious belief, but it's important to keep the person's mind rather calm. And disturbing the mind at that point is really very bad. And so this calm mind can help in the next lives. So the text mentions about reaching the 10th ground of Bodhisattvas. And so once you have reached there, then you are very close to becoming a Buddha. So for those of sharp intelligence, the first within the Mahayana practitioners, they first realize emptiness and then go into the cultivation of bodhicitta. And once they develop bodhicitta within themselves, they have entered the Mahayana path of accumulation, and then after that they enter the Mahayana path of preparation, or when they have developed the penetrative insight into emptiness, reach the combination of shamatha and vipassana with regards to meditation on emptiness. And then after that, the bodhisattva goes and enters into the path of seeing. And then from there, the 10 grounds of bodhisattva starts. And the bodhisattvas on the 10 grounds have attain various qualities. And so once you go through such a progression along that path, you'll be able to teach others from your own experience of the path. And teaching, and when we see some teachings which have been taught, which were taught from experience, they are different. And so once a person reaches the path of seeing and beyond, the person becomes a superior being or an Arya being. And having reached the 8th grounds, the person has overcome all the negative emotions from within their mind stream. So during the first 7 bodhisattva grounds, the bodhisattvas overcome the negative emotions. And then from the 8th ground to the 10th, and to the end of the 10th ground, they work on overcoming the cognitive obscurations as well. And within the path of accumulation, there are the 3 stages of the path of accumulation: small path of accumulation, intermediate, and then the big path of the accumulation. And within the path of preparation also, there are the 4 stages. And so when you learn about these things, you can see how one can actually progress from the lower state to the higher ones, and to draw inspiration to actually engage in the path, to develop this within oneself. So the bodhisattva on the first ground having developed the path of seeing, then they go into the meditation, path of meditation of the bodhisattva grounds. And so during the path of meditation, the text says that they deal with those negative emotions which have to be overcome through the path of meditation. So this is what is taught in the Langar Avatara Sutra. So having entered when you enter the ocean of omniscience, so on page 51, I think, entering the ocean of omniscience, you possess impeccable jewel-like qualities to sustain sentient beings. And so what we have to understand is how we progress along the path up to the end of up to Buddhahood, beginning with the path of accumulation, and then going into the path of preparation, and then the path of seeing, and during which you overcome a certain amount of negative emotions, and then you enter into the path of meditation, and during those 9 bodhisattva grounds within that, you overcome the negative emotions as well as the cognitive obscurations, and then finally overcome the subtlest form of defilement within your mind and become a Buddha. And so at that state you attain Dharmakaya and the Svabhavakaya. So the mind becomes free from the defilements, all defilements, and therefore you attain the Svabhavakaya. So, of course, the mind, the basic nature of mind is such that the negative emotions have never been part of the mind or intrinsic in it. But you also, on top of that, you also overcome the negative emotions that are in mind. Therefore, you are freed from all the defilements, and when you reach Buddhahood. And then you also attain the Buddha, a physical form of Buddha as well. So the individual then becomes the embodiment of compassion, possessing various skillful means that function spontaneously and work in various emanations in the interest of all wandering beings. In addition, all marvelous attributes are perfected with total elimination of all defilements and their latent potential. All Buddhas abide to help every sentient being through realization. Through these realizations, generate faith in the Buddha. And then it ends by saying that wise distance themselves from jealousy and so forth. So we are finished with the stages of meditation, and next we are going to go through the dedication chapter of Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, which is in the yellow book on page 83. Page 83, sorry. 53 in the same book. Page 53 in the same book. So may all sentient beings be graced with Bodhisattva way of life by the virtue I have obtained while reflecting on a guide of Bodhisattva way of life. So through my merit, may all those in all directions who are afflicted by bodily and mental sufferings obtain oceans of joy and contentment. And so you are thinking about the suffering in short term as well as long term. So long as you are in samsara, you are praying here that the sentient beings be never devoid of mental happiness. As long as the cycle of existence lasts, may their happiness never decline. May the world attain the constant joy of the Bodhisattvas. As many hells as there are in the worlds, may beings in them delight in the joys of contentment of Sukhavati. May those afflicted with cold find warmth. May those oppressed with heat be cooled by oceans of water springing from the great clouds of the Bodhisattvas. May the forest of sword leaves become for them the splendor of a pleasure grove, and may the sword-like Shamali trees grow as wish-fulfilling trees. May the regions of all hell become vast ponds of delight, fragrant with lotuses, beautiful and pleasing with the cries of white geese, wild duck, ruddy geese and swans. May the heap of burning coal become a mound of jewel. May the burning ground become a crystal marble floor, and may the mountains of the crushing hell become temples of worship filled with Sugatas, may the rain of burning coal, lava and daggers from now on become a rain of flowers, and may mutual battling with weapons now become a playful flower fight. By the power of my virtue, may those whose flesh has completely fallen off, whose skeletons are of the color of white jasmine flower, and who are immersed in the river Vetarani, whose water is like fire, attain celestial bodies and dwell with goddesses by the river Mandakini. May the horrifying agents of Yama, crows, and vultures suddenly watch here in fear. Those looking upwards behold blazing Vajrapani in the sky and wonder whose is this brilliant light that dispels darkness all around and generates the joy of contentment. May they depart together with them, freed from vice through the power of their joy. A rain of lotus falls mixed with fragrant flowers. It is seen to extinguish the unceasing fires of the hells. May the beings of the hells, suddenly refreshed with joy, wonder, what is this? And may they see Padmapani, and so forth. And then there are two verses which praise the qualities of Manjushri. So friends, come quickly here, and then also verse number 13 and 14. Through my virtue may the beings of the hell rejoice upon seeing the obscured clouds of Bodhisattvas headed by Samandabhadra and bearing pleasant, cool and fragrant rains and breezes. May the intense pains and fears of being hell be pacified. May the inhabitants of miserable states of existence be liberated from their woeful states. May the animals' risk of being eaten by each other disappear. May the pretas be as happy as the people in the Uttara Guru. May the pretas always be satiated, bathed and refreshed by the streams of milk pouring from the hand of noble Avalokiteshvara. May the blind always see forms. May the deaf hear. May pregnant women give birth without pains, as did Maya Devi. May they acquire everything that is beneficial and desired by the mind: clothing, food, drink, flower garlands, sandal pads, and ornaments. May the fearful become fearless, and those struck by grief find joy. May the despondent become resolute and free of trepidation. May the ill have good health. May the
through this merit of mine, may all beings without exception abstain, while every nice and always engage in virtue, not lacking the spirit of awakening, devoted to the Bodhisattva's way of life, embraced by the Buddhas, and free of the deeds of Maras. I have already said that the major religions of the world have two sort of aspects: the philosophical aspect, the religious doctrinal aspect. And so in Indian tradition, ancient Indian tradition, women enjoy a sort of man enjoys a higher status. And so because of that, this text, being an ancient text, sort of follows that tradition, and woman is considered as a lower stated person of society. And a friend of mine said that Bodhisattva Chari is not a good text because woman is considered lower in this. So so I told that person, this is like when Bodhisattva Chari text was written, it was like taught to assembly of ordained people, whereas but if from the point of view of women, men's man's body is also, like men and women can think of each other in the same way. May all beings have immeasurable lifespans, may they always be happily, and may even the world death disappear. May all quarters of the world be delightful with gardens of wish-fulfilling trees filled with the Buddhas and the children of the Buddhas, and be enchanting with the sounds of Dharma. May the ground everywhere be free from stones and rocks and smooth like the palm of the hand, soft and made of lapis lazuli. May the great assemblies of Bodhisattvas sit on all sides. May they beautify the earth and with their own resplendence. May all beings unceasing hear the sound of Dharma from the birds, from every tree, from the rays of light, and from the sky. May they always encounter the Buddhas and children of the Buddhas. May they worship the spiritual mentor of the world with endless clouds of offerings. May God send rain in time, and may there be abundance of crops. May the populace be prosperous, and may the king be righteous. May medicines be effective, and may the mantras of those who recite them be successful. May Dakinis, Rakshasas, and other ghouls be filled with compassion. May no sentient beings be unhappy, sinful, ill, neglected, or despised. And may no one be despondent. May monasteries be well established, full of chanting and study. May there always be harmony among the Sangha, and may the purpose of the Sangha be accomplished. Many monks who wish to practice fine solitude, may they meditate with their minds agile and free of all distractions. May nuns receive provisions and be free of quarrels and troubles. So and so on, and may the learned and cultured receive alms and have provisions. May their mind streams be pure and their fame be proclaimed in every direction. Without experiencing the suffering of the miserable states of existence, and without arduous practice, may the world attain Buddhahood in a single divine body. I'm jumping the stanzas a little bit. Through the grace of the stanza 50, stanza 51, stanza 52, 53. When I wish to see or ask something, may I see the protector Manjunatha himself without any impediment. Stanza 55, for as long as space endures, for as long as the world lives, may I live dispelling the miseries of the world. Stanza 55, for His Holiness says this is a very powerful prayer. For as long as space endures and for as long as the world lasts, may I live dispelling the miseries of the world. Stanza 56, 57, stanza 58. I bow to Manju Gosha, through whose grace my mind turns to virtue. I salute my spiritual friend, through whose kindness it becomes stronger. So this is the dedication chapter of Bodhisattva Charya text by Shantideva. It was in the Tibetan text, original text, it says it was translated by Tibetan scholar Pandit and an Indian scholar from an Kashmiri copy, and then later on it was revised again. His Holiness says in India, in ancient India, there's like Kashmiri Vaibhashik philosophers. So Kashmiri here refers to, it doesn't means the Islamic Kashmir. It refers to an ancient region which includes the area where Takshila University was located, and So it is from the area where the Takshila monastery was located, and then the other this the central the Indian Sanskrit word Magad. If you translate that into English or Tibetan, it means the central seat. So Nalanda and Kamalashila, these institutions are located in the central area, and Takshashila sort of falls under the area of Kashmir. And it was later on revised by Indian master Dharamsala and at the Central India, based on a Central Indian copy. And later again, it was revived by Indian master Sumadakirti and Tibetan scholar, translator Londen Sherab. Next, we will go start with the 37 practices of Bodhisattva path.
37 verses.
So until now, the texts we covered so far are Indian scriptures, treatises. Kamalashila was a scholar from Nalanda monastery. Now, since the 7th century, Buddhism started arriving in Tibet, and Tibetans started showing interest in Buddhism. Especially in the 8th century, Shantideva, the Indian emperor, and Guru Padmasambhava met, and they introduced Buddhism into Tibet on the model of Nalanda, and translated the Buddha's teachings, the Buddhist canons, which contain Buddha's own teachings, about 100 volumes, and about 200 plus volumes of treatises. When I was in Tibet, when I went to Rading Monastery, I saw Indian script text written on palm leaf in Indian scripts, and they were brought to. They have holes on the folios, and such texts were there also at Sakya, and many of them got burned away during the cultural revolution in Tibet. Luckily, in the 40s, one Indian scholar came to Tibet, Rahula. No, he visited Samye monastery, and he sort of plotted with the caretaker of Samye monastery library, and he stole some of these ancient scriptures in Indian on bound pages, folios, and they were brought over into India, and nowadays they are in the Patna Museum. So whether it's stolen or not, it's good that he was able to bring them over to Tibet, and they are still existing. So Tibetan treatises are based on Indian treatises, Indian works, and so it is very authentic. Some people say that Tibetan Buddhism is Lamaism. This is a very this is a misunderstanding and a wrong designation. There's no Dharma in Tibet which is not based on Indian treatises and Indian sources. Whatever teaching is there in Tibet, it must be it must have origin in India. Without that, we don't consider that as a standard teaching. Whether it's Nyingma, the old translation tradition, or the new translations tradition. For example, like the Sakya Kadam, Gelugpa, and Chonang. So all these traditions of Tibet are all trace their lineage and origin to India. Regarding Nyingma tradition, it's traced its origin to Shandarakshita and Guru Rinpoche. And the tantric aspect is traced to Guru Rinpoche, and the scriptural study is traced to Shandarakshita. And Nagarjuna is also in that lineage. Now, regarding the yogi tradition, which is a unique tradition of singing in spiritual songs, and their own spiritual experience in the form of songs. These are very unique tradition, and in this tradition, the verses and the meanings are not really. For example, in the Longchen Rinpoche's teaching, he has commented on this lineage. In these songs, if you look at the words directly, you get a little hesitation and doubt that they don't look very authentic. But actually, because these are more based on experiential, spiritual experience, songs of spiritual experience. So therefore, in other words, the entire Buddhist tradition of Tibet is entirely based on Indian tradition, and it's not a Tibetan invention or Tibetan fabrication. And but Tibetans also played a part in this misunderstanding, because Tibetans put up high thrones for lamas and did some fancy things, and that creates some misunderstanding. But if the Lama has real realization, then it's okay. So, also this reincarnation system, when a reincarnation child was born, the child is considered very high from the beginning, because it was the reincarnation of a high Lama. But the child don't study well, they don't have not knowledge. Also, the Tibetan tradition of some lamas wearing monk's robes, but at the same time having wives and drinking wine like that. So the Tibetans, this appearance in the Tibetan tradition that those who have name of lamas and rinpoches are sort of like enjoying a higher status, and even though some of them are not qualified, whereas real scholars and real practitioners are sort of staying way down there without sort of unknown and without much respect. And he's on His Holiness tells one ancient Tibetan Lama, a great practitioner, who was a sort of a Zapatru. He was a great practitioner, and then one night when he was traveling, he reached a small village and stayed in one of the families there. And he looks like he's a single person. He was traveling as a single monk, he doesn't look sort of any grand, and so they thought he's just an ordinary monk, and they told him yes, they can stay, but they told him, okay, you please help around with house chores. And he said yes, of course. And then he helped that woman do house chores, and then some of Zapatru's students went to Zapatru's real residence to see him, but they found out that he was not there, and they searched for him, and they sort of follows his trail, and it led to that old woman's house. So they asked that woman whether they saw a lama, Zapatru, and the woman said, I didn't see any lamas, but I saw one monk traveler, a poor monk traveler, and described the physical features of that monk. Then the monks described the physical features of that monk, and then the woman immediately realized that the monk in her house is actually that Thai Lama. So she felt very embarrassed and ran away. That's because before this happened, one day she asked that monk to go and empty the ball of her chamber pot in which she urinated. So and another story about Domtempa. He met. They were together with another traveler who was also sort of a monk, and they were climbing up a mount hill together, and that Domtempa was a very simple-looking, humble-looking person. So that other monk was more pompous, and so as they climbed up that hill, the monk felt very sort of tired and heavy. So he took off his shoes and put the shoes on the shoulder of Domtempa to let him carry that. So when they reached after a while, Domtempa's disciples were waiting for Domtempa, with a reception party. And so the monk thought, those people must not be, waiting for me because he doesn't know them. And then he and then he asked Domtempa, why are those people, just preparing that welcoming party? And Domtempa said, well, those people are sort of doing that for me. So then that monk felt very embarrassed, immediately left. He ran away without even claiming the shoes that he has put on the shoulder of Domtempa. So this term Lamaism is not a correct, not a proper name. Tibetan Buddhism, I always say, is authentic and pure Buddhism, and particularly it is the tradition of Nalanda. It was Chandarakshita who introduced that in Tibet, giving classes, giving monastic vows, and also all these things were started by Chandarakshita, and it was then continued by Kamalashila. Because after Chandarakshita, there was a short gap during which some people came and say it's not important to study just like that. So then Kamalashila came and revived that, and then this tradition sort of thrived and continued over the centuries. So all the different traditions of Tibet all trace their origin to Tibet and are based entirely on the Indian tradition. I have two reasons for saying all the time that Tibetan tradition is the Nalanda tradition. First of all, in order to prove with evidence that Tibetan tradition did have concrete proof that it came from Nalanda tradition. It is the Nalanda tradition. And the other reason is that in the Tibetan tradition, even though it has like subsections like Sakya, Nyingma, Kagyu, like that, but even though they all originated from Nalanda, they, after coming to Tibet, they became like Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, and Gelugpa. But if you go back to the root, it's all Nalanda. Kagyupa, for example, Kagyu tradition goes back to Naropa. From Naropa came to Marpa, Narpa to Mila and Nyame Tapupa. So Naropa was at one time one of the greatest luminaries of Nalanda University, but then later on he sort of became a tantric practitioner and left the monastic tradition, and the Sakya tradition originated from Bivaba, who was also a Nalanda master, and the Kadamba tradition started from Adisha, who was another luminary of Nalanda tradition. And during the time of Tsongkhapa, Buddhism was already declining in India, but when he composed his treatises and wrote and also when he taught, he always based completely on Indian works. So therefore, if it's if we try to show, always try to emphasize that all four traditions of Tibetan Buddhism originated from one monastic institution in India, then that has a that sort of will have some effect. Now, another reason is I always emphasize on this this what I call as the general Buddhism and specific Buddhism. And it was this kind of concept was there in Tibet since very long time ago, many centuries ago. But the person who actually sort of openly introduced that, or rather, is this Nyingma master called Nyingun Sungrapa, a great scholar. So what that means is Buddhism. There's a general aspect to Buddhism and a personal aspect to Buddhism. The general aspect is the one that the teachings that were given publicly, or that are universally learned and studied by everybody, whereas the tantric practices are like personal practices, and personal transmissions are received by specific practitioners due to his experiences, the realizations that the deities appear to them and then bestowed on them specific initiations and tantric instructions. So these teachings fall into one category called specifically a sort of personal specific instructions. Now, the difference in Tibet, the division of Sakya, Nyingma, and Kagyu and Geluk tradition that we have in Tibet, that is based on this personal transmission aspect. Whereas the general teaching is sort of like studied similarly by all the four traditions. So when we have these many divisions like Sakya, Kagyu, Nyingma, and Gelug, and within Sakya within these four there are subdivisions like Sakya has Tharpa and Ngorpa like that, and Nyingma also has that. So these are all subdivisions, all like based on this personal transmission aspect of Buddhism, which is sort of received personally by realized masters. But when it comes to the general Buddhism, it's sort of uniform to all Buddhism, all divisions. And another thing is in Tibetan tradition, there's a lot of sort of fondness for different types of hats, religious hats, like different traditions where different hat designs. The Buddha Shakyamuni doesn't have a hat, and the sixth grade masters of India, like Nagarjuna, they don't. It's not clear whether it doesn't seem like they wear hats in India, but in Tibetan tankas, they are depicted as wearing different hats. So in Tibet being a cold country, so it's kind of lamas wear hats. So it's and then since they are Tibetan lamas themselves are wearing hats, they also put hats on the tangas, on the heads of the sixth grade masters of India. like except for Nagarjuna, which is a different case, because in in the picture of Nagarjuna, he was depicted as having snakes, a canopy of snake over his head. So it's difficult. It's not possible to remove that. So they just have to leave it like that without a head. And there's also this saying that the reason why Nagarjuna didn't have snakes over his head is because if he doesn't have those snakes, some bees come over his head and bite him. So the snakes were there to protect him from those. So, in the Tibetan tradition, we have names like the yellow head, the red head, and the white head, like that. And when the color is not enough, then the design, different designs were made. So we can. So these kind of these trends that had developed in Tibet, I'm not saying they are bad or negative, but most important thing is studying, learning, and contemplation and practice. And regarding how many treatises Tibetans have written, Tibetan masters have written so far in the I don't know, have an exact number. Perhaps there are about over several thousands. Perhaps Tibetan scholars have written more treatises than Indian traditions, Indian masters. The Korean scholar Wensik was a great scholar. I have I have read his work, and it's very clear that he was a great scholar. He has cited the Indian master Dharamsala many times in his work. So Tibetan tradition has produced many hundreds of scholars over the last many centuries, and many of them were really outstanding masters. And now one of them is this Gyalsey Thokme Sangpo, who was the author of this particular text, the 37 Practices of Bodhisattvas. I received this text, the transmission of this text from Kunu Lama Rinpoche. This text is mainly the subject of this text is on the practice of bodhicitta, the bodhicitta mind. So regarding so this text, as the style of this text is that it sort of bases itself on the page 83 of the text, which contains the precious yellow book, page 83. So this text is based on the Lamrim text of Tsongkhapa. So if now the first stanza is on as homage, if you have good understanding, then you'll understand what is what it means when it says no coming, no going. So you see, the first line says, "You see that all phenomena neither come nor go." In this, what that means is in the view of the path of seeing, the direct perception of emptiness, there is neither going nor coming. But conventionally, there is going and there is coming. So, second line, please, you can have your tea while listening to the teaching. Second line says, "Still you strive slowly for the benefit of being Supreme Guru and Protector Cherisi." The Buddha is not a permanent singular self, self-born Buddha person. In Pramana Vartika, Dharmakirti has said the Buddha became a Buddha, became through causes and conditions. It's not like he was always a Buddha. So through learning, contemplating and meditation, he became a fully enlightened person. The perfect Buddhas, the sources of benefit and happiness, arise from. So, to become a Buddha, you have to start from the beginning stage, and from the beginning stage. So, up to this is what is called as the pledge to compose this text. Now, the first practice, this first verse, now that you have obtained this precious human body, the great boats, so difficult to find, in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of samsara, listening, reflecting, meditating, day and night. So, what is this is saying? This is saying is in this life, when you have the power, mental power to study, analyze, and then meditate, that is the practice of the Bodhisattva. So this is the first step. Second stanza, passion towards friends churn like water, etc. So in our life we have, like many people you are close to, and due to that you develop attachment and detachment, sort of aversion like that. And these are like sort of traps that hold you in samsara. And so a true practitioner has to renounce, detach himself from all these things. Tibetans sort of renounce. Tibetans left their country not out of renunciation, but because they were forced to renounce their country. And so, third stanza. What is the purpose of renouncing your family and home? With regard to Tibetans, we escaped to India, but after escape from Tibet, and after arriving in India, when we first arrived here, we don't even have, many of us don't even have a cup that we brought with us. Then we started accumulating objects, and we make up our rooms like that, and then we have many things piled up nowadays. So we make a new home and a new family. So the purpose of giving up your family and home. And the next is about impermanence. friends and relatives acquainted for long will separate. So in this life, no matter how much you have like friends, relatives, wealth, fame, at the time of death, nothing will help you. None of them will help you. Neither your body or physical power. But if you have what virtuous action you have done while you are living, and a good virtuous mind at the time of leaving, that will help. And nothing else of worldly sort of facilities can. For example, myself, on the day I leave, neither my friends or acquaintances or my sponsors or students or whatever, nothing will help. I have to leave. Stanza 5. And generally, if one is amongst a big crowd of people, like where there's noise, commotion, and if you are a sort of a serious practitioner, this is a disturbance. But if you are a social person, a person who are doing some work for social society, then it's a different case. So, like always trying to help others in society, and even smiling to people, helping your friends. But one has to, when you do that, by living in a society, you have to make sure that if you have friends who are deceitful, always selfish, make sure that you don't you don't go under their control. So that's what this means. Abandoning bad friends is Bodhisattva practice. 7th stanza. This is teaching on guru devotion. Now, regarding guru, the guru or the spiritual master, there are different definitions given in different levels, according to the Vinaya, according to the Sutrayana, and according to. So, for example, according to the Sutra system, there are 10 qualities given as definition of a standard spiritual master. These are like subdued, peaceful, like that. If the master a spiritual teacher is himself not a qualified master, then the such lamas get some disciples, and then after a while the lama does disgraceful things, disrobes, abandon, and like that. And so Tsongkhapa's instruction here is very powerful. He says, to be able to tame the mind of other person, first one must be able to tame one's own mind. One cannot just say I have this quality and this Lama has this and that quality. The qualities must be in accordance, in par with what is explained in the sutras. What the spiritual teacher means here, knowledgeable. Knowledge here is not about like knowing a lot of different subjects, but internal spiritual qualities. And a guru means higher, superior. So higher in spiritual qualities, that's the meaning. So if you don't have spiritual qualities, what's the purpose, even if you have the name of, let's say, like Dalai Lama? So up to this is like how to stop attachment and appreciation for this life's what do you call, attractions. Stanza 8. Now, your object of refuge should be such that it is the object of refuge, the protector, and your savior should be someone who has the quality to really give you protection and guide you to liberation. Like worldly gods and like these spirits, like what we call as kings and demons like that. If you propitiate them a little bit, they give you a little bit help. But if you stop that propitiation, they start harming you. This is there to a certain extent, but if you say everything, every misfortune you face is due to harm by spirits, that's not true. But many of these spirits, so-called spirits, their nature is such that if you propitiate them and give them like dharma and like that sort of thing, then they feel pleased and help you here and there in small ways. But then the day you stop that, or you forgot to do that, then they start harming you. They get angry and start harming you. So these things are not such spirits are not qualified as object of refuge. So these spirits don't they don't qualify as the Sangha. They can help us, give us small helps here and there, but they cannot qualify as a Sangha. Stanza 10. Next is 8. This is stanza 8 is about the practice of karma. Stanza 9 is about cultivating this aspiration to attain liberation. And stanza 10 is about the practice of selflessness, emptiness, and attaining the state of Buddhahood. Bodhicitta, sorry. Stanza 11. This is about the practice of bodhicitta through the technique of equalizing and exchanging oneself and others. And so these are about the practice of the 6 perfections based on the Bodhisattva Charya text, and also Ratnavali, the Precious Garland of Nagarjuna's. Stanza 12. Like the practice of practice of patience, not coming under the power of hatred. It is said that when the author Thokme Sangpo, one day he was staying at a place. Some robbers came and took away all the things, sort of offerings that people offered to him in his house.
So these bandits who robbed Thokme Sangpo was going to towards some certain direction, but he actually told him that don't go that way, because then you'll meet with the sponsors who had actually offered these things to me, and so go the other way. So for us, if they pay these robbers, if it were us, we would think that, oh yes, these robbers will actually meet with the people who offered these things to me, and they will really get into trouble. We would be really pleased if these robbers went to that direction. But that wasn't the case with Thokme Sangpo. And so we would think that the sponsors and people who have made those offerings to us would actually crush the robbers. So verse number 13. So in Tibet in 1956, 57, Chinese started invading into the Amdo region, and in Dashikil Monastery, there was a very good teacher of Jamyang Shepa. So when I was passing through Amdo in 1954, he was there, and he actually made a very good explanation of the narration of during the mandala offering for long life. And so he was taken to a certain place for execution. And so before the execution took place, he actually requested time to do some prayers. And so the guards also gave him time, and at that point the prayer that he said was that, may the great honorable master bless me, so that all the sufferings and the negativities of other sentient beings will ripen upon me, and that my happiness, joy, and the positivities go to others. And so he did the Donglan practice, giving and taking practice of Bodhisattva, and so it was very good. Should someone slander you in a billion worlds with a loving heart to proclaim his good qualities in turn is the practice of Bodhisattva in the middle of the crowds. Someone reveals your hidden faults and abuses you for them. To see him as a spiritual friend and to bow to with respect is a practice of Bodhisattva. If someone who is cherished, who you cherish as dearly as your own child takes you for an enemy, then like a mother whose child is sick, to love that person evermore is the practice of Bodhisattva. Even when one who is your equal or inferior, driven by an arrogance, seeks to disparage you, to place him on the crown of your head with the same respect you would accord your guru is the practice of Bodhisattvas. Though gripped by poverty and always scorned, though stricken by acute illness and possessed by evil and so forth, Verse number 22 shows the practice or cultivation of ultimate bodhicitta. All appearances are your own enemy, and mind itself primarily transcends all mental fabrications. Knowing this and to remain free from apprehending the signs of subject and object is the practice of bodhisattva and so forth. And then verse number 25 down shows the 6 perfections. The perfection, verse number 25 shows perfection of generosity. And so these are very important. As practitioners of the Dharma, or religious practitioners, you need to check within yourself whether you are actually doing things in accord with the spiritual principles or not, whether you are going against certain precepts or not. And so you need to check within yourself. So it says, in brief, whenever you are, wherever you are, and whatever you do, always examine the state of your mind. Continuously working for the welfare of others is the practice of Bodhisattvas. Verse number 36. To dedicate the merit thus accumulated through these efforts of enlightenment to enlightenment with the wisdom free of concepts of the 3 spheres in order to eliminate the suffering of all infinite beings is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So, verse number 37 finished. And then, by relying on these words of genuine masters, I explain the meanings taught in the sutras, tantras, and other treatises in the form of these 37 bodhisattva practices to benefit those who wish to train on the bodhisattva path. Because my intelligence is small and my studies few, I lack linguistic skills to please the scholars, yet since they are based on sutras and teachings of the genuine masters, I believe these practices of bodhisattvas are flawless, and so forth. So the 37 practices is done. And now we'll do the bodhisattva generation of bodhicitta. So you need to, even if it's hard, you need to put effort in cultivating bodhicitta and train your mind. So if you could generate bodhicitta in front of a lama, a spiritual teacher, then on a daily basis, having received this bodhicitta, generated bodhicitta in this ceremony on a daily basis, if you could remind yourself of bodhicitta, you'll make fresh your experience. And so here for this ceremony, please visualize the Buddha Shakyamuni in person, and also him surrounded by great Indian masters like Nagarjuna, and also Tibetan masters and other spiritual masters of the Buddhist traditions. And you first dedicate whatever merit you have accumulated through your body, speech, and mind. And so you should dedicate them as offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that you have visualized in front of you. And also, whatever negative actions you have done to harm others, to hurt others, so with your bodies and speech, and also in your thought, confess them, regret and confess them. And then the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in front of you have generated bodhicitta for the benefit of all sentient beings. and their good thoughts and deeds, as well as the good thoughts and deeds of other sentient beings on this earth and in the universe. You rejoice in them, and then you make offering and request the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas not to turn the wheel of the Dharma and not to pass away, and rejoice also in the great deeds of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then request them to turn the wheel of Dharma, give teachings, and also not to pass away but live amongst us. We have the text for Bodhicitta ceremony on page 11 in the Grey Book, the Middle Stages of Meditation. Please look at page 11. So as I say in Tibetan, please repeat these lines in your own language, whichever language you are following. Please kneel on your right knee for this ceremony of bodhicitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment. If you have bad knees, then you are an exception. You may keep seating. Keep seating. Please, in the last 3 days and then earlier today, in short, Bodhisattva Charyavatara says that having contemplated what is most beneficial for eons and eons, the Buddhas found only this to be the one that is beneficial, which is the spirit of. And so what is the best means to benefit other sentient beings, having thought about, contemplated about it for eons and eons? And so for accumulating merit or to purify our negativities, there's nothing greater than this principle of bodhicitta, the spirit of altruistic spirit of enlightenment. So if you could generate this spirit of enlightenment, you'll be able to purify your negativities and accumulate merit on its own account. And also get rid of obstacles and be able to fulfill your wishes. And so for physical health and also power and dignity, if you could practice bodhicitta well, then there's you don't need any other. This should suffice to fulfill all this, and therefore it's 100% sure that bodhicitta is going to be beneficial for you in this and other lives. And therefore today, in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, you make this determination to generate bodhicitta with a wish to free all sentient beings. Please repeat: I shall always go for refuge to all Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach the essence of enlightenment. Enthused with wisdom and compassion, diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddha, I generate the mind for full awakening to work for sentient beings. With a wish to free all sentient beings, please repeat again: I shall always go for refuge to all Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach the essence of enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddha, I generate the mind for full awakening to work for sentient benefit of all sentient beings. Repeat again: with a wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to all Buddha, Dharma and Sangha until I reach the essence of enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddhas, I generate the mind for full awakening. Please sit down. So this mind, the spirit of enlightenment that you have generated now in through this ceremony, you should practice it on a daily basis, cultivate maintain this and on a daily basis by going through these lines that you have repeated here, so that it would be like recharging yourself with bodhicitta. So as far as I'm concerned, I do this bodhicitta ceremony on a daily basis. So when you when you do this, and then when bodhicitta is quite fresh in you, and you are really dedicated to generate, to cultivate bodhicitta and help other sentient beings, then at such a point you may take bodhisattva vows. And so the Vietnamese and Koreans and Southeast Asian people together have gathered here this time, as I requested. So as I said in the beginning, I really thank you for. So when I teach for days like this, days on like this, I get tired. So as an old man now, I need some rest as well. So the younger people should work harder, but the older one like me should take rest. So thank you, everyone. The most important thing is the Buddha has said, you are your own master. So you are yourself, the master of yourself. And so if you could generate and cultivate and develop a good heart, warm heart within yourselves, then you're going to help yourself. If you remain unruly, undisciplined in your mind, without being able to tame your mind, then even if you may pray to the lamas and Buddhas and so forth, they will not be not much effect. And so the essence of the Dharma is not, and the best is to help others, but even if you can't help others, at least don't harm. So what you can do from now on, from this day on, is you should not, what you can do is not harm others. If you can help, do it. Help them. Even if you can't help, don't harm them. And so whatever you do with your body, speech, and mind, do them in order to help others. If you do that, then your own goals will be fulfilled as a byproduct. And so if you have the resources, wealth, then you could also help the poorer people for their education as well as health, training, and skills. And then you could introduce what you have heard about helping others here with your friends and other families and so forth when you go back to your countries. So here we are gathered, a few thousand have gathered here. And so if each of us could share the message that you have learned here to 10 persons, then that would multiply to 100, tens of hundreds of thousands. So from 10, that could multiply to 100, and then 1,000, and 10,000, and 100,000, and so forth. And so please do this. And with this, we are done with the teaching. We'll not have question and answer session, but for the Southeast Asian people, we'll have a photo session. So the rest of the people should leave, I think, the temple. Gondo Sangpo, Teyan, Teshin, Da, Gungi, Jeso, Daglob, Jingawa, Da, Tamje, Rabdongo, Dusum Shebe, Gawa, Tamje, Gimoa, Kangla, Chodonga, Bate, Dagin, Gave, Zawa, Sangpo, Chichi, Rabdongo, Warki. Seje Gave, Jama, Kanjin, Yongsun, Yachin, Malam, Kanze, Betrezan, Tende, Nyodo, Chawa, Nando, Chuni, Samu, Tende, Dan Chosum, Tuji, Tuda, Tense, Dendun Dajage, Dembe, Melam, Gagme, Nyundro, Shore. In short, Lord, Protector of Avalokiteshvara, in the presence of the conquerors and the Bodhisattvas, I pray to take under your care the Buddha field of the land of snows, that the good results of the vast aspirations you have made right now may swiftly come about. Calm. You may leave, keep it with yourself. Yeah, this fair distribution from them. No, touch it. 저랑은 수시다. 그랑은 수대다. 어디?
Okay.
Your Holiness, on behalf of the Asian group, we're offering this Kanta Shakyamuni Tankas for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this 4 days teaching, and thank you for your time taken. We know you are very tired, but appreciate your time.
Where's your book? Take this.
Yeah.
No,
and
it's
we're
his.
also offering for your
It's
80th
his.
birthday the longevity pictures for you. Thank you, His Holiness. On behalf of the group.
Okay.
And
thank you.
just one person. Okay.
Sit down.
Thank you.
No. How many?
Thank you.
How many?
What?
2 only. Okay, that's enough, right? This 2, right? No more. Okay, please sit down. No more. Okay, no more. The card. Wait.
다 앉아 제가 안에 쉬고대 가서 빠르게 걸어봐. 쉬고대.
Your Holiness, the Vietnam group is offering you a birthday cake, the 80th birthday cake. Birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to Krishna, happy birthday to you.
이 빠야 저게. 몇 빠야 저게. 미직 빠셔야. 몇 빠야. 가. 그거 왜? 미직 빠셔 좀 좀. Usually, you see, candle, the flame, like that. Now this time, positive flame. Push. What is it? Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Your Holiness. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. That's right. 네, 아무도 지금 말씀 주실 것 같아.